Hello, everybody, and welcome to another of the Laughlin Associates Blueprint Strategy webinars. This is the ongoing series where we're bringing you professionals and topics that are going to be specifically geared towards helping your business start, grow, prosper, and to protect what you've built. So we want to be there with you through your life cycle of your business. Laughlin is celebrating its 50th year in business. We've worked with many hundreds of thousands of business owners like you, and what we've learned is people want to set up the right entities, and then they want to know what to do next. So whether it's at the early stage, just making the right choices as you get organized, to how to scale and grow, to as you start to build wealth, how to protect it in such a way that it can't be snatched away from you from our incredibly crazy and litigious legal system. I love the legal system because if you know the rules, you can navigate it. But when you don't, you're really at risk. And thankfully, today, we have one of Laughlin's greatest friends and allies. Actually, I tell people this all the time, but actually the individual who called me 21 years ago and said, Mr. Laughlin has passed away. Do you have an interest in buying the company? And I'm grateful for that call. I'm grateful for what this company has meant in our family's life, in our portfolio of companies, and for the exciting things that are getting ready to happen with going public and so many other cool things. But it all started with Kevin Day. Kevin is one of the principal partners of one of the named partner of Tresp Day and Associates law firm. They're internationally recognized leading trust and trust litigation law firm, trust formation, management, litigation. They work with people from all over the United States who are either have great wealth or accumulating wealth, or have patents and other sorts of assets that are vital to the growth and protection of their business, as well as protecting the assets that we accumulate as our businesses go from being cash flowing to profitable to where we start to have wealth as owners. So wherever you are in that process, growing, successful, have a bunch of wealth, this is the guy that you want to be talking to. And today he's going to be discussing with you some of the tools that you'll need to have in place and the things you need to be aware of in order to own nothing, control everything. Is it okay if I say where that came from, Kevin?
Yeah, please.
So John D. Rockefeller, the second wealthiest person to ever walk the planet Earth, supposedly said, urban legend, but it came from his son, said that on Mr. Rockefeller's deathbed, he told his children, the great last minute advice to his kids was, own nothing, control everything. And certainly Rockefeller did that in his life. And the world, the legal system, the tax system and so on is designed, if you know how to do it, to successfully and very capably own nothing, control everything. But you've got to know the rules. And that's what Kevin's going to be talking to us about today. There'll be a slide at the end of the presentation that I'll show, maybe while we're doing Q&A. But I want to highlight for those of you that are here now, in case anybody needs to jump off later in the hour, the Laughlin Magnify Your Wealth Summit is coming up in just about 6 weeks, October 16th, 17th, and 18th. October 16, 17, 18 in San Diego, California, right there on Mission Bay at the Dana Resort. For those of you near the end, the price right now is $599. On the 15th of September, it goes to $799. For those that are here in that last 10, 15 minutes, I'm going to put up a slide and I'm going to give you a code to get the price at the early bird pricing of $399. So if you decide that joining us in San Diego, and they're only about, we just had this in our meeting, our management meeting on Tuesday morning. There are about 30 tickets left. We limited to 100 people. We were around 70 confirmed and paid. So about 30 left. You know, we're not trying to strong arm you, but we want you to, if you are hearing things, you go, man, I better dig into that more deeply. there'll be an opportunity to get a better price because you showed up today for this webinar. So with that, I'm gonna leave the view here, Kevin, but I'll be in the background listening. And I want to turn the time over to Mr. Kevin Day, Esquire of Trust Bay and Associates. Thanks, Kevin, for being here.
Thank you very much, Aaron. And thank all of you for coming today. If you haven't already written it down, the Magnify Your Wealth Summit is a very cool event, very educational, and it's October 16th through the 18th, right on the bay in San Diego. More than reasonably priced for what the information you're getting. And I know that there's about a third of you who have already been, that are present today, that have been to the Magnify Your Wealth presentation before. And we have a couple new speakers that will be very interesting as well. I want to give you a taste of what the sort of things that are in our arsenal to put yourself in a position to control everything but not own everything. So before that, I will bring up my slides. I'm going to share this slideshow in the beginning. Close that. So my firm is down in Solana Beach, California, which is in San Diego County. It's about 25 minutes north on the coast. And the presentation today is not going to be covering it's going to be covering a few things that we normally don't cover. I do dissect, and for those of you that are new to Laughlin or haven't been to a Magnify Your Wealth presentation before, it's about lawsuit protecting your wealth. And there are different ways to do that. There's not just one way to skin this cat. And we want to offer it all. I mean, the normal answer, if you go to an estate planning lawyer, a corporate lawyer, or a real estate lawyer and say, I want lawsuit protection, they're going to say, let's get lots and lots of LLCs and segregate them so your eggs aren't all in one basket. So when there's some devastating event in one basket, at least it won't come and take your home and your savings and your other real property. Those are all the lightning bolts down at the bottom. The problem is, what happens when you get sued personally? Either they do what you've heard in the movies and so forth, piercing the corporate veil, which is getting, it's happening more and more, but it's still, I'm going to call, not the norm. Usually they can't pierce the corporate veil as long as you've been doing your corporate formalities. And if you're not doing your corporate formalities, that's one of the things that one of the services that Laughlin offers, and it's super reasonable, and it allows you to stick to your knitting rather than keeping the corporation up to snuff. But if you get sued personally, because it has nothing to do with your rentals, or it has nothing to do with piercing the corporate veil, it's because you had a car accident, or like what lawyers do, they always throw the net as wide as possible so that they bring you into it, at least tacitly. And judges, unfortunately, don't have the backbone that they used to have. And they, oh, everybody needs their day in court. Well, even though that's going to cost me, $150,000 to litigate to get an answer that I won, that's hardly winning. And so we want to put you in a position that even if somebody sues you personally, it's still going to be lawsuit proof. And that's that personal liability or external attack. It's not an attack from the companies. One of the other things that is basic, kind of bedrock after doing your corporate paperwork is doing a structure that Laughlin has been implementing back since 1972, and it's called the Rockefeller strategy. And that is creating, as you see this line that's going down the middle, there's what you normally perceive as
Kevin,
you. Yes.
the slides are not up.
Oh, they are not.
So hit share screen and then share your main screen, like the number one position.
Right.
And then it'll open up your PowerPoint and then click the presentation button. Yep, people are saying I can't see the slides. You guys are all good. You're right. Kevin's teaching, but the slides are not up. I did an entire presentation like this one time. Thank you so much for everybody that just chimed in. So do you see
Okay.
how to do that, Kevin?
I think I do. So I've got that up. I'm going to put it on slide.
So when you hit share screen, you should see your whole screen come up, like your desktop.
Right.
So I'll be right here with you till I see them up. Thank you guys for your patience, but this is
Team effort.
team effort. We love to do it.
Okay, so I want to start with that slide, and I'm going to play from the beginning. Let's see, once I do that, it knocks me away.
Okay.
Now,
So when you hit share screen, it should have said desktop. It'll show several things. It'll show your desktop. Click that.
yep.
Choose your PowerPoint slides and put it into presentation mode. Oh, something's happening. There, you're in presentation mode. There you go.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay, there we go. So that was the slide we just talked about. So the entities are important. You want companies to segregate assets from one another, but you don't want a gazillion of them, especially when it still leaves you vulnerable from those external attacks where you have personal liability or they're alleging that you have personal liability. In this slide, the white on the left-hand side of the screen is what you normally, how you would normally own things. And as I was saying, besides the fundamental paperwork to make sure that your company stays in status and it's not going to be able to be pierced, piercing the corporate veil, the next bedrock foundational true lawsuit protection structure is a Rockefeller strategy. And I've been in this work for 30 some years as an asset protection expert, nationally recognized expert. And there are a lot of tools to lawsuit protect yourself, but the Rockefeller strategy is the only one that can lawsuit protect your business assets as well as your personal assets. Most things you have to have, and we want to keep you streamlined as possible. If you have too much stuff, it gums up the work and then you don't use it. And so this is a very streamlined strategy, and the Rockefeller strategy can hold your liquid assets, your portfolio, what we call the low-hanging fruit that lawyers want, but it can also hold the equity in your home and your operating businesses and your real estate, which are higher liability. Your home isn't, but you want to keep that in your own name for tax, the various tax reasons. So we're going to be covering the nitty-gritty of Rockefeller and the equity stripping strategy and why it's legal. And we're going to cover, we're not going to go too far in legalese, but we're going to show you the code, the corporations code and the IRS code that says you have to operate with your company at arm's length. And we're going to take advantage of that. If you have to operate your company at arm's length, what else is it entitled to? And if it does something for you personally or for your real estate, or offers you a line of credit just like Bank of America, it can say, I want a senior protected lien on those things that do stay in your name. And it's old law and it's effective, and we've seen it work with our clients. We've never had a structure busted. We have had structures that have been found out about, but even that, because we're also weaving in privacy, which Nevada is the best state in the union. We use a bunch of different states for different particular reasons, but nobody has as much privacy and such a long history. So the judges are very familiar and they have their own privacy structures in place. That's who you want hearing your case and protecting that right. So working out of Nevada is one of the best things that you can do. We're also going to be talking about basic estate planning, because that's foundational. I'm not going to talk about it in the slides today, but those of you that entrepreneurs tend to rock and roll and run down the path of their business, and they put everything into it, and they often, oh, I know I need to do estate planning. So we will cover that as well. But on the lawsuit protection and privacy planning, you're not going to be in better hands than with Laughlin. Now, one of the things that I particularly am an expert in, and my firm is and has been since 1992, right after is offshore trusts. And offshore trusts are very powerful. They're legal for U.S. persons because the U.S. in the early or late 1980s signed the Hague Convention on Trusts, and it was the first time in U.S. history where you could name yourself as a beneficiary of a irrevocable or lawsuit-proof trust, and but name yourself as a beneficiary. Before we signed the Hague Convention, you had to give up fiduciary control and beneficial interest. So it's fine if you're ready to start gifting to your children, for instance, but most entrepreneurs aren't quite ready for that. And even those that are super wealthy that should be starting carving off parts to their children say, I want a lawsuit protected, but I still want to be the primary beneficiary until my death. And so this is actually a little bit about how I came to be an expert, and our firm is in the top 2 in the country and has been since the beginning. Is I wrote a bunch of books right after the Hague Convention was signed. And people were interested in it, and they went to their lawyers, and their lawyers knew nothing about these Hague Convention trusts. And they went to the continuing ed people, and they didn't have any information on it. And they found me because of my books. And I, along with Arnold Goldstein down in Florida, became the, I'll say guru, lightly or humbly, giving continuing ed to CPAs and lawyers across the country. And I'd love to say that it was particular brilliance. It was just good timing, and my interest in the international arena led me to that. So we will be talking, it won't apply to everybody, but we'll always have about a third of the people attending or more, either based on wealth or the high risk of their business, that international is appropriate. We do have domestic trusts that are copycat trusts that copycat the Hague Conventions. In the United States, there's about 18 jurisdictions that have passed such laws. There's only 8 that have any teeth to them. And Nevada, again, on the domestic versions, which are much, much cheaper than the international ones, are very powerful. They have the shortest statutes of limitations within the United States. And again, you have a court that recognizes them and has recognized such things for a long, long time. In the international arena, however, we have different jurisdictions, and I rarely cover this at Laughlin seminars. And so I wanted to give you guys a little treat, and it might not apply to all of you now, but hopefully with your success in your businesses, those of you that already aren't tuned for an international structure, you'll get a little taste of it. There are about 12 jurisdictions we use on a regular basis for various different things like captive insurance, companies, and international companies. But for trusts, Cook Islands and the Isle of Man and Gibraltar are ones that we use regularly. And you know, the fantastic thing about the U.S. signing the Hague Convention is that under U.S. law, under our law, it removes U.S. jurisdiction over the trust. So our law says our courts don't have jurisdiction over it. So if somebody is trying to bust your trust, they have to fly to the Isle of Man or Cook Islands, hire barristers there or attorneys there to run your case. And as I said, most of the time, 80% of the time, adverse parties don't find out about our structure. So they don't even know, which is great. But those that do know have already spent a lot of money before they get to the point where they find out that there's an international card that you're playing. Wanted to show you, because this is rarely, where are these places? Most people know that where Cayman is and Bermuda, and because they're good vacation spots. You know, Bermuda is about where New York is out into the Atlantic. Cayman is south of Florida. But they're both very sophisticated jurisdictions. But Cook Islands, you know, where the heck is that? Where is Isle of Man? Never even heard of it, and so forth. So here's a little picture of the Caribbean. And if you can see, if you go directly down from Miami, you'll see little dots there below Cuba, and that's where Cayman Islands are. And actually, they had to make those dots bigger because they wouldn't actually show up in proper perspective on the map. But it's an important enough jurisdiction that they've done that. If you look over on the right, just to the right of Puerto Rico, you have the British Virgin Islands north and the US Virgin Islands south. British Virgin Islands is a very good place for foreign companies, a very respected place. It's not on any OECD blacklists. If you look further down, and you have Nevis and St. Kitts, which is a highly used jurisdiction for us. They also are very good with LLCs and have good law there, as well as in their trust laws, but they're less expensive jurisdictions. Isle of Man, that's in the middle of the Irish Sea. It's literally about 23 miles off of Scotland and about 26 miles off of England and Ireland. And it is the oldest tax haven in the world. It is older than Cayman Islands by far, which came on the scene in the 50s and 60s. Cayman is a very sophisticated jurisdiction, and they are smarting to this day, even though they're super sophisticated. Every major bank in the world, from the US, the UK, Japan, even the Swiss banks are down there. They're still smarting from their bad time in the 50s and 60s, their start. And so everybody knows it. And if you say, oh, I have a trust in the Cayman Islands, in a deposition, you're going to have a lot of laughs around the table. Someplace like the Isle of Man, they're going to say, where's that? And we're going to say, it's in the UK. And they're going to go, okay. And then they're going to go forward. So it's a good tactical jurisdiction. Someplace like Seychelles is great, or someplace where the language is Portuguese and all the litigation documents have to be turned into translated. The Jersey and Guernsey are very good jurisdictions, and Jersey is the big green islands off the coast of France. And if you go way up to the top, there's a little green speck, and that's Guernsey. But Jersey is a very fine jurisdiction. It's close to France, but has been retained by England after the war, way back when, with France. And it is a good tax haven with good professionals as well. This I had to create myself with a little red dot. This is the Cook Islands. It's about the same size as the Cayman Islands, and they have a number of islands, just like the Caymans. It's a New Zealand protectorate, so any cases there answer up to Privy Council in New Zealand, and there's no bad actors around it. It's not surrounded by anything but water, and it's a very good jurisdiction to place a trust. The whole point of asset protection is the concept of control, not ownership. And as you will learn or have learned by attending other Laughlin seminars, there's only two ultimate owners: a flesh and blood human, you either own things, no matter how many companies you have between you and the assets that you want to protect or to lower the profile of, or an irrevocable trust. Those are the only two things. And we can do that internationally, which I just ran you through a little course in the international trusts. I thought it would be fun. I certainly, as I said, will not be talking about that at the Magnify Your Wealth seminar, but I have that knowledge. And if it's a good fit for you, we offer free consultations, and that's one of the benefits of that. I'm $675 an hour, and you're paying less than that to go to the seminar, and you can sit down with me at no charge and pick my brain. So please take advantage of this great offer and low cost that Aaron Young and Laughlin have offered you. Going back to the basics of the paperwork program for the encumbering, these are the items that we want, but we want real consideration. And then part of my law firm's job is to make sure that I shouldn't be telling you something behind closed doors for your lawsuit protection plan that I can't proudly say to the adverse party and the judge in the case. And that means we're not just throwing liens on your property and hoping for the best. We're actually creating real consideration that the law has to recognize so that it's backed up by the proper paperwork. And that's part of my law firm's job, is to create that. You have your home state businesses, you have your real estate across the United States, and then we'll have a Nevada company that will interface with all that. We'll create promissory notes and security agreements to support that consideration. UCC1s are liens that are put against all personal property, and deeds of trust or second deeds of mortgages or deeds of trust are the unit for encumbering real property. So we use a deed of trust or on property, and everything else, your car, your accounts receivable, all of those would be UCC1s. And if you want to move money out of your home state to a state where into a company that's lawsuit proof, and some of you are in circumstances where you could also get tax advantages by moving it to a tax haven like Nevada. We can set it up that way. We can structure it that way as well. So back to the kind of basic configuration of Rockefeller, that's essentially what we want to lead you through in the seminar, plus provide all kinds of other magnify your wealth, accelerate your wealth experts that Aaron has put together. I think that's the end of my presentation. Oh yeah. My firm has that's the asset protection department, and my partner sitting next to me, Elizabeth Tresp. We have about 28 people now. We're actually just hired 2 more that are starting this week. So we're growing. I would love to turn this back over to you, Aaron.
So go ahead and stop sharing your screen.
Okay.
So I want to ask you some questions, Kevin.
Yes.
There you go. All right. So first of all, and folks, if you have questions, please start putting them in the Q&A side, not the chat. How much net worth should I have to take advantage of this?
Oh, the Rockefeller, I think the Rockefeller strategy is something that you should invest with if you own a home and a business, or you own a home and some rentals. Insurance, we're never going to say do away with insurance, but the more insurance you get, that's a little bit of a target on your back. There is an underbelly of attorneys that target people because of their large insurance. So you want insurance to take care of the ankle biters and the slips and falls. But as you know, if you've ever applied for insurance, the first thing they say, oh, we're going to send it over to legal. And what does that mean? They're looking for a way not to recognize payment out for the damages that you've had. So I think everybody should be getting Rockefeller unless they're still, they're renting and they don't have a business, or a W-2 employee. The trusts start to get up. If somebody's, the offshore trusts, if you're at about 3.5 million to 4 million, certainly by 4 million, but we've found that at 3 million to 3.5 million, people have taken care of their creature comforts, and they now have disposable income. And then they're making these investments that start to accelerate their estate. And everybody that's gotten to that level knows what I'm talking about. It's kind of heady because all of a sudden you are creating dollars that are rolling the ball for you, and you're not having to roll the ball. So at that point, you don't want to start all over. So certainly at 4 million, you should seriously think about it. If you're just at 2 million, the Rockefeller with a domestic equivalent trust is more than sufficient. And we have people that are wealthier that say, hey, I don't have renters, I don't have tenants, I do have a lot of wealth. The domestic is fine for me. And that's what we work out. Our job is to educate. But if you're between that 2 million and 3.5 million, that's where we need to sit down and just educate, and talk about the circumstances, get to know the client so we can make a recommendation which way to go. The domestic is very powerful, and you can start with that and move later. Yes, sir.
Certainly. Well, one, this is not necessarily to say, come on down to this webinar or the seminar in San Diego, but this is the kind of thing that you can get into deep, and you can have people that are financial advisors, tax advisors, and legal advisors all come and sit at a table together with you and look at this thing holistically and help you come up with an answer. Now, of course, you don't have to come to the seminar for that, but it's one of the things we try to make happen at the seminar. I see there's some other questions. I'm coming to them in just a minute. Kevin, you change this if you think I'm a little bit out of order. or wrong, because you're the lawyer and I'm not. But for at least for Americans, for people in the United States, first thing, like if you own anything, first thing is have a living trust, right? That holds your personal stuff and keeps you out of probate court, right? Then the next thing is, what about a Rockefeller or multi-entity strategy? And then do we add revocable or irrevocable trusts onto those things? Those are sort of the steps, right? And then the bigger you get, the more belt and suspenders you want to be.
Exactly. So everybody knows they're on that conveyor belt. They are going to pass on at some point. And if you have a home, you're going to be ripped over the coals financially. Your heirs aren't going to get money that lawyers are going to get. And I will spell that out at the seminar. As I said, this whole fun stuff with the offshore trusts, I'm not going to be covering at the seminar unless we're talking about it 101 at the seminar.
But you, generally speaking, that's the hierarchy: living trust, entities, multi-entities, and then you start getting into the more exotic stuff like Rockefeller, where you're actually encumbering, you're putting liens on certain properties, and then you can get to revocable or irrevocable trusts, which somebody's asking about that in a minute. We're going to talk about.
Just all stepping stone fashion. We need to be able to create something that is scalable and buildable over time. So just because we're educating you about the whole thing, there are a lot of people that say, yes, I'm way behind the curveball on this. Let's go and let's do all of it. But most people are doing we're creating a plan, and we have a roadmap plan that we can put in place that actually outlines what you have now, what are the next steps, and what are our ultimate goals. And you'll get there faster that way. But the way you lined it up is exactly the way we can do it. We can add the trust later at the appropriate time.
Okay, Dave Smythe up in Canada is saying, I like what I'm hearing. By the way, this is a super cool guy. I want to give a shout out to Dave. Dave has built this mega plumbing company with all these technicians, and his ultimate goal is to be a civilian astronaut. He's trying to make money so he can go to space. And I just think he's one of the coolest guys. And I just want to shout it out, because talk about a big dream, a big audacious dream. So anyway, Dave says, I like what I'm hearing. Do you have knowledge of how to do this for Canadian residents or corporations?
Yes. So
what should he do how should he talk to you? How can Dave talk to you? Because I'm going to guess most people on here are not Canadian. So how can he get answers from you?
Okay. My email address is...
Hey, write this down, guys.
Kevin@trespday.com. That's TRESPDAY.com. Or you can call at 858, I'll repeat it, 858-755-6672. That's 858-755-6672. And we can set up an appointment. And we're familiar with the T1 or T3s. We're familiar with, we have quite a few Canadian clients either want to use the Rockefeller strategy for their assets in Canada, or that are starting to make investments down in the US.
Susan Morrow, thank you, Kevin. Susan, and thank you, Dave. Susan Morrow says, I saw revocable and irrevocable trust. Do you need both? Will you just give a short answer of why would you want revocable versus irrevocable?
The reason why you would want revocable is the basic estate planning, but you don't get lawsuit protection when you can revoke it and bring the assets technically back in your name, or change the beneficiaries, either one. Irrevocable or lawsuit proof. The reason why, and you're correct from the diagrams, we're looking at two, kind of a shadow estate plan, because there are certain assets that have such high liability that you don't want to put it with the piggy bank, assets, the cash, the portfolio. Real estate is super valuable, but it's also high liability. So we have people that have sold their businesses, don't have any real estate. We can just use a lawsuit protected trust, and it is the estate plan, but so few people are in that position.
So again, write to Kevin at trustbay.com if you have specific questions that you don't want to get into too much detail here, and you can get a consult with them and see if, they'll tell you before they're charging you. They'll tell you, generally speaking, before they dive too deep with you. The next one says, I want my ex-wife to not be able to claim my company's revenue as attributable to me for increasing child support. Would this structure help? Now, I don't have that much money. Revenues, this is anonymous, so I'm just reading it verbatim. Revenue is $300,000. I pay myself half of that, so $150,000. I have expenses for the other half that the court could attribute to just reclassifying personal expenses to business expenses. I think I have an answer to this, but the first, and then I want Kevin to dive in with a more lawyerly answer, but here's the deal. The reason you use a corporation or an LLC is to separate you, the human, and your family from the business activity. The reason that we promote our corporate veil protection service, where we do the minutes and resolutions, make sure your stock has been issued, the ledger is being managed and all that, is so that the court or the auditor also see that you're actually making decisions as a family, as a business. If you're trying to do something that is logical and legal, the courts will back you up. In other words, you notice when Jeff Bezos got divorced, his wife didn't take half, but they had a prenup or they made a deal that had to do with really the discretionary part of the fortune, right? There was some reasoning they came up with where she got whatever it was, 35 billion or something. You don't get the whole company, but you would do whatever the court said based on your own income. So does a strategy like this, Kevin, the Rockefeller strategy, does it, I just want to be clear, it's not designed to trick anybody or defraud anybody. The idea is to just make it difficult for somebody who gets greedy and wants to go, and it sets up reasons that stop them. So Kevin, under what circumstances for a internal divorce kind of situation, like how far can this go? And
yeah, you're already divorced. We can help you with that. The Rockefeller itself is not the right strategy, but it's changing ownership of the operating company rather than equity stripping it or encumbering it or pulling money out, which is something we couldn't advise. But we do have strategies that would kind of freeze that income so that the ex-wife is still getting what she's used to at this time, or he. I've forgotten how whether it's a he or she, that anonymous.
Former spouse.
Yeah. So we can freeze what the former spouse is getting, so what they're accustomed to will remain, but we can protect growth.
But again, when you're getting into nitpicky specific details, like you already have a court order about your child support and so on, and it's based probably on a formula. So this has got to be done very specifically and lawyerly, so that you're not hiding, but you're appropriately adjusting how assets are held so that it does put limitations. And then you can make a decision once those things are done. If you want to do more out of the goodness of your heart, that will be one thing, versus having somebody, an ex, come in and try to change the rules of engagement. You have an opportunity before there's an argument to start to restructure how everything's held. Is that right, Kevin? Do you agree?
Yes. Again, I need to be proud of my work. I don't want to lose. I don't want to be personally embarrassed. I don't want to be able to lose my license. So we have to, there are things that we just can't cross over certain lines, but there are things that we can help for the future and growth.
Yeah, there's as in any other situation, there are ways to look at how do you mitigate risk without trying to like sneak around, so to speak. I'm not saying you're trying to sneak around. You're saying, how do we reclassify things? And I'm just saying, talk to Kevin, because this is not his first rodeo. He's seen everything at every level. Okay. Jason Rushing says something. I live in California, but want to establish a foreign LLC. First of all, LLC, if you are a member of the LLC, this won't work, by the way. How can I avoid paying California taxes if possible? And I'm not a lawyer, but I'm going to say you can't, you don't want to do tax evasion against California. They're very aggressive. There are ways to organize your company so that some stuff comes to you in California and some stuff stays elsewhere that the company can do. Don't ever forget, guys, companies take deductions, individuals get taxed. And if you run your company appropriately and follow the rules, which takes some effort, you can't do it super quick. You got to think about what you're doing and do it appropriately. There's a lot of ways to reduce, but you're probably not going to eliminate your California taxes by setting up a Nevada entity. It's, first of all, this is nothing new of people trying to do this. They've been trying to do it forever. It's one of the reasons that when I bought Laughlin 20 years ago, Lee Morgan and I said, we're not going to do this half-truth stuff anymore and say, here's what the laws are in Nevada, and trick people like some of our competitors do into doing a company. Why? Because as soon as they have their first tax bill, their accountant's going to say, well, no, that doesn't work. And then they go, why did I spend all this money with this Nevada incorporator? Nevada and Wyoming are fabulous in strategic ways, but they're not a cure-all for California's high tax thing. You'd be better off to just move away from California if you're in a position where California taxes are really, truly hurting you. I mean, then move to Nevada or move to Wyoming or freaking move up to Washington State, where I live, where there's also no state tax. I moved from Oregon, 10.3% income tax, to Washington, 0. And I only had to move across the river. It was a very easy choice. Okay, Kevin, now your turn.
Yes. However, if you love living in California, but also want to structure yourself, and as Aaron said, sometimes you just can't do it. But if you have the right kind of investments, if you have real property invested, for instance, out of California, and you have a non-California CPA, I think it's unconstitutional, but that's one of the things that the FTB in California use is, even though the property rental, you're getting rent for some Arizona property, that's Arizona dirt. How could that be business in California? And they say, well, it's also where your accountant is. So we can get around that. We can hire a California CPA. We can make sure that we can defend it against the FTB as not being California source income. So not everybody is in that position. If you've ever driven to Nevada, there's a bunch of warehouses right across the border in Nevada. And that's, let's say if you had a book that you were going to sell, and some of the income comes here because of the work I do, but if the book itself is based and you have somebody that goes into that warehouse and drop ships that book out, that is Nevada business. And that's why IKEA and all these other warehouses are there. If the big dogs do it, us little dogs can do it.
Yeah, there's a reason why Visa is there, Barnes & Noble is there, Amazon is there, Tesla's there. It does not get them out of income that's coming into other states. If you have a Nevada corporation and all the money is going through there, but you still need money to live on, that's going to be income to you wherever you live. And so if your company can pay your cell phone bill and it's in Nevada, that's one thing. The other thing is your company, I mean, there are so many rules about what determines if a Nevada company or any other state company, if it's doing business in another state as a foreign corporation or LLC, there's a lot of tests to see, well, I know you're saying you're over there, but you're doing everything here. So we think you're here. And then that becomes a very expensive battle with the state government. So what you can do is you can have a lot of money going to a more, let's call it safe or advantageous jurisdiction, and you're paying yourself for the money you want to take out. But if you're doing all the work in California, if your office is in California, if your team is in California, if your revenues are all flowing into California, you are California, and there's no getting around it.
Yeah, and that's one of the a very classic thing that some of the other incorporators in Nevada do. You call them up and say, hey, do you have a tax strategy? And they say, yeah, create trust day law of Nevada, and just when you get paid, stuff it in that company. And that's total tax evasion. That's totally going to get you in trouble.
Yeah, and California is very serious about it. It's not California is a little bit like Texas. It's a state you just don't try to argue with the state because you will lose. It's better, way better if there's enough. I'll tell you what, we're getting ready to take our company public. I'm really, really thinking, should I take advantage of the tax laws in Puerto Rico, which the US government has approved to try? They don't want to be sending all this aid. They're saying, hey, wealthy Americans with capital gains, go to Puerto Rico and start a business and hire people or live there half the year and put money into the economy. And in return, we'll give you a lower capital gains rate, 4% instead of what President Biden would like to do, up to 40-some%. But, match it to the income. I don't know that I want to move to Puerto Rico in order to save capital gains, but I might if it's enough money. So all of us need to make that same decision, but there's no simple way to evade paying your state its taxes. And this isn't meant to beat up on the individual who asked the question. This is something we hear all the time. And there are other ways to organize yourself beside just pretending. You may get away with it for a while, but you'll be breaking the law the whole time. So Stuart Wright, however, let me go back and say this. However, there are ways of doing this stuff. You notice that the richest people in the world, now granted, Gates and Bezos live in Washington, no state income tax, but of course, Phil Knight lives in Oregon of Nike, in the high income tax. And look at Musk just left California, right, for Texas to get away from California tax. But the point is, there are ways, and the trick is go in, talk to Kevin, come to the seminar, do whatever you want, but dig in deep and get specific answers to your specific situation. Stuart Wright says, when should my daughter set up an LLC, as she has no assets now and only one rental property? Kevin, I can have you answer it. It's also one I feel strongly about.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people do buy LLCs for their children so that they can.
This is an adult child.
An adult child, right? She's got so much going on. She's very entrepreneurial, and starting kind of, I hate to use this analogy, but when you give a piggy bank to a small child so that they start to get into the habit of saving, giving a company to her right now when she has real reasons to have it, but it just becomes second nature. So all the things, Stuart, that you had to learn and grapple with and get your arms around, she'll just go ho hum. That's of course you interact with multiple companies instead of just one for your entire life, business life.
And my reminder to everybody, and Kevin, I'm sure will nod vigorously. I suspect he will. A lot of people, when they're getting started, their company doesn't have a lot of assets. It doesn't have a lot of value, doesn't have a lot of cash flow. It just hasn't accumulated much. As a matter of fact, you may be feeding it. And they go, I don't really need asset protection because there's nothing there yet. So why would I spend even a few $100 or $1,000 to protect something that's money losing or break even? And I want to remind you of this. Asset protection, a big part of asset protection is separating your home estate from your business stuff. Because you could have a loser business that gets into a lawsuit, and if you haven't done your asset protection, protected your corporate veil, thought about these things in advance, they can just blow right through the company and go start taking what's in your garage. So never confuse asset protection with, I only need to protect the business when it's making a certain amount of money. I only need to incorporate when I'm, making $50,000 or $100,000 a year. Folks, if you and if you have anything at home, if you've got a boat that you own, if you've got equity in your house, if you've got savings, I remember Kevin's talked about the coin collection that your grandfather left you, right? If you have anything like that, that all becomes at risk if you don't clearly separate your company from your estate, your personal estate. And I just can't say that loudly enough, because people, in an effort to be, they're concerned about money, and I don't think you should buy more than you need. But I love the old expression about penny wise and pound foolish, or stepping over dollars to get to dimes. You're worried about something, and you're missing the real thing that could be lost, which was everything you already had that gave you the confidence to step out and start the business or whatever. I'm safe. I've got some runway. I've got a few $100,000 equity in my house. I've got this, that, or the other. But the business isn't making money. And so people don't do stuff. There are a couple more questions here. Is this to say that as business owners, we should pay the least taxes on our income from the corporation and us individually? I'm a little bit confused by that question. Is this to say that as business owners, we should pay the least taxes on our income from the corporation and us individually? Are you following that? I'm not exactly following. Please. Oh wait, Michelle wrote again. How much tax should we as a larger corporation pay? What's considered fiscal responsibility? Well, I can answer the question. This isn't a lawyer question. Here's the question. Pay the tax that you owe and not one nickel more. There are reasons why you've heard even Warren Buffett go, it doesn't seem reasonable that my secretary's paying higher income tax rate than me, right? But the deal is Buffett's making his money from capital gains, not from W-2 income. As a corporation, there's all kinds of ways to reduce your taxes. If you just make boatloads of money, you're going to end up paying some taxes, but there's all kinds of ways as a closely held company to move money around pre-tax, or take after-tax money and put it into things that will grow tax-free after that. So this is another reason to come to the seminar, truthfully, because we cover a lot of this stuff. And we just did a tax webinar, but we'll do another one. But I don't think I can give Michelle a percentage. Can you, Kevin?
No.
It's all over the board. I've been amazed over and over again when I think I'm going to be at the top tax rate. And then because of all the things we do as business owners and having multiple projects and multiple streams of income, and we're making money here and losing money there, you get it all boiled down, you pay 18% or something.
Well,
even when I've made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars personally,
right,
it still ends up low because we had so many things to offset it.
Ron Folsom a CPA, will be at the Magnify Your Wealth conference, and he has incredible, he's advised me personally, he has incredible little things about your circumstances that can turn your tax world upside down. He's been very beneficial for me.
Well, it's so it's let me be clear. Let me clarify two things. It's Ron Fossum.
Oh, yes. Thank
not
you.
Folsom, Ron Fossum, and he is not a CPA. He is a tax strategist who works with tons of CPAs, and but he's a guy who just knows the code. I hate to tell you this, guys. A lot of CPAs don't know the code.
Right.
Just because somebody shows up to work doesn't mean they've taken a deep dive to really understand their industry. And that's why you can have 4 CPAs do your taxes and get 4 different outcomes, right? Tax planning, tax strategy is a specialty, and Ron is very good. And Ron works in conjunction with a number of accounting firms, and including with Ben Golden at Golden Tax to do the actual reporting part. But Ron is the strategist and is brilliant. We've used him as a company too. And that's why we had him speak at the last event. He's on the program for this next event. Ron is the one who did the tax seminar recently, which if you write to M. Cole, M-C-O-L-E, M-C-O-L-E at Laughlin USA, she may be able to help you get the replay from the last one. We've gone over time now, guys. I want to tell you this one more time. Write this down. I have a slide, but I'm not going to bring it up. Write this down. MagnifyYourWealth.com. MagnifyYourWealth.com. If you register for, so remember the price right now is $599. On the 15th, it goes up to $799. It just keeps going up till right at the day of the event, it's $1,500 to get in the door. If you show up unannounced, we charge you that because it costs us money in food and beverage and all kinds of stuff. So we give you all these incentives. If you go to magnifyyourwealth.com now, if you're going to come anyway, go register now and put in the coupon code VIP, VIP. And for today and for, we'll probably let it run into the weekend because we'll send the replay out. But you'll be able to get $200 off. You'll get the $399 price. That will be gone on Monday. And what'll happen is it'll just disappear. And then when we go to $799 on the 15th, if I give out VIP, it'll take people to $599. So if you want to come anyway, just do that. Michelle Levy is also saying, can we pay additional taxes into the economy? The answer is you can overpay your taxes if you want to, but there is no charitable donation for taxes. If you want to give to something that you want to help the country, there are many, many, many charities and organizations that will gladly receive your money. The IRS has its own rules, and it'll let you overpay a little bit, but it'll even notice if you're grossly out of whack. There's no way to contribute into taxes, but there are many ways to contribute toward outcomes that matter to you. So Anastasia says, how about what type of company is set up for asset protection when you're trading crypto? And I would say C corporation is what I would say.
C corp or an LLC ticked as a C corp.
LLC ticked as a C corp, and maybe, depending on how much you're doing, maybe have the LLC owned by a trust. Because that's getting crazy. C corp, if you have it in a corporation, the nice thing is you only have to report on your, as I understand it, I'm not a CPA. Instead of as an individual, you have to show every gain and every loss. As a company, you can just show money in, gain or loss out, and it simplifies your reporting.
You want to be C.
Pernell Gray says, I used Laughlin in setting up my LLC several years ago, and I'm interested in the Rockefeller or Walton strategy. Should I contact Kevin for that or Laughlin? Is there someone that I should talk to about the family office structure? you can go to Kevin to set up a Rockefeller, or you can call Laughlin and talk to Brent Busquet. Brent Busquet, he's the GM. He's been with us 35 years or something. He's the guy that handles Rockefeller strategies at Laughlin. But one way or the other, Kevin and Brent will end up working together on putting it together. So
I talk to him every week. He would be the best point person.
Brent will get it all organized, and then he'll come back to Trust Day to organize the legal parts. So yeah, call our office or write B Buscay, Buscay. So at BBUSCAY at laughlinusa.com, and you can talk to him, and we'll do everything we can to help that be great. Pernell, if you want to talk about family office structure, talk to Brent. And if that doesn't go the way you want it to, you can talk to Kevin, which would be a good choice. Or you can go right to Kevin at Trust Day. Okay, we're over time. Thank you guys for staying on. We've had a great participation. I'm really impressed by the excellent questions, interesting questions, and some questions that people definitely. California is a frustrating place. It's the best of worlds and the worst of worlds. Thank you for the love that we're getting in the chat. Kevin at Tresp, TRESP Day, DAY.com. Or you can go to bbuscay at laughlinusa.com, or you can call the office. If you want to come to this seminar, if you want to get one of those last 30 tickets, go to magnifyyourwealth.com, use the coupon code VIP when you register. That'll be good for a couple of days. And thank you guys so much for being here. If you liked information here, you'll all get a copy of the replay. I want to thank our guest, Kevin Day, who is not only a trusted advisor for me personally, for our family, for our estate, but also a dear, dear friend. And anybody that was here at the beginning, I was telling him, it's been too long since you've been here to visit the beach house. Come on down, brother. But thanks, Kevin, for being here and for being such a phenomenal friend and ally to the company. We appreciate you so much.
Always.
And we'll see everybody on the next Blueprint Strategy webinar. And we'll look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye-bye.